Hello, welcome everybody. It's Tuesday, August 1st, 2023, and we are here for a Cosmic Tower Q&A. And, Nico and I got together and talked a little bit about preparing for this, but what I wasn't prepared for, Nico, as we would start is just this feeling of missing Harald. Like I am, his playfulness and his commitment to humanity are all part of why we're here, and I'm sure he's looking in, but I just want to acknowledge for a second. I don't know if you want to say anything about that. Just caught up in the feelings of it for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we miss him, on the physical plane here, but I feel his presence really strongly. And grieving, I think, is a natural part of the human experience when we are still living in this illusion that we live and we die. And I think we're more grieving from our expectations that maybe are not aligned. That's kind of like this thing. It happens to everybody else, but not to me. So, I think part of the times that we're living through now is where that illusion is falling away, that there's such a thing of like, now you're alive and now you're dead, right? I mean, I've had those experiences of starting to communicate with my parents in the other room. A lot of people have that with Harald now. I think that's part of the journey. And I think people that Cosmic Towers are also on this, that get Cosmic Towers are on this spiritual journey. And I think what we're discovering again is that our natural state is one of connectedness to all of life. And by Harald guiding the project now from a higher realm, yeah, we get to experience a beautiful expansion. And we also see examples of like that there's continuity in our being. Even when we drop the skin suit, which we only borrowed from the earth for a limited amount of time anyway. We gotta give it back.
Yeah, by rule, everybody gets it back. I love what you're sharing. It's very quickly presencing that Harald's death is the most graceful, amazing death I've ever seen, because there's so many conscious people around. And so the speaking and the articulation of people's feelings and inquiries around his death have been from conscious beings and not just like the cultural narrative. And it makes me realize that it's actually gone really, really well. And I don't know where that emotion just came from, but I'm thankful it came up so that we could presence that.
Yeah.
It's a great place to start. And so as we lean forward into Q&As with Harald not having a body, we endeavor to remember the truth of our capacity to communicate beyond the body and our capacity to remember who we are and to keep dropping illusions. And
that's what the Cosmic Tower Project is really about, right? This is how the earth is gonna shift. Yeah, the 5G, the water, etc., is important, but the most important impact on the earth going into this new reality is humanity expanding its consciousness, right, and going to a different level.
Yep. And that includes more playfulness. So let's talk about why the name on my Zoom box has changed from Patrick to Patter, and tell people what's going on. So when I was a little boy, I was called Patter, and I always liked the name. And you can imagine as I got older, I shifted from that. And then when my kids got to the age that I was when I was Patter, particularly my older son, Peter, we would have these family vacations. We were a big family that would congregate in Massachusetts, and there would be, a division where the adults would go one way and the kids would go another way. And I always went with the kids. And the kids started calling me, well, Peter in particular, my son, started calling me Patter. And I always liked it. And then my other kids started calling me Patter, and then their cousins started calling me Patter. And then I floated it out there in the last couple of years to a couple of business colleagues, and And that's been a really positive experience for me. And what I started to notice recently, well, actually, I'm getting out of order here. So, so I've always liked it, but I've never really fully embraced it. And, you know, one of the roles that Nico plays in leading this project, but also in being my brother and my coach, my friend, my teacher, you know, we play a lot of roles with each other, is that Nico's extraordinarily playful. And, you know, he's witnessed the part of me that's in the way of playfulness. I refer to that part of me as the ogre. He's what do you think, Jen? What is he? He's controlling, he's condescending, he's impatient. You know, he's an all around not fun guy to be around. And so Nico was thinking about creating workshops for CEOs with trapped inner child, and I would be the first student. And so, you know, this topic's been around, like you know, everybody who's on the inside of the company like knows that this dialogue is one that's ongoing. So a month ago today, I moved into this Airbnb that I'm going to be checking out of in 2 hours. And I moved in with just like a base level insecurity about the name of my cosmic tower. Like for one reason or another, can't tell you any particular deep meaning or story about it. I just started calling her Francine. And I was like really insecure about it, which I think is part of the nature of how we are in our interactions with the cosmic tower. Is we can be like unsure of ourselves. I certainly was. And I was also unsure, like, what influence does this have over me? So the first 10 days that I moved in here, I didn't get a car. And the reason I didn't get it, and I'm pretty isolated right now, like there's a market I can walk to in a mile. And other than that, there's like nothing going on here. And so I just hung out here with Francine, and I asked her to help me. And I was like, will you please help me with embodying and expressing my inner child? And it wasn't a very fun first part of the month, you know, like I was calling Nico for support fairly often. And I was like stretched in a way that I could handle, but was, you know, uncomfortable. And I got to see what's in the way of being playful. And that's what happens when we set these intentions and we take something on with the tower. Nico, I don't want to go too far without making room. Do you have anything you want to jump in on yet, or should I just keep going with a little bit more and then we'll go back and forth?
Yeah, and then let's dive into questions. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go a little more, but I want to make sure we keep it as a dialogue. So, you know, I set this intention, and then, you know, I started having all this tension, and the gaps between playfulness and the ogre started to really be seen. And I started to be able to hold the playfulness energy a lot stronger. And then I noticed after, I think it was between like the 14th and the 21st, like the second to the third week of the month, that I was really holding the inner child playfulness connection a lot more. And that's when I started inviting a few more people to call me Patter. And I noticed when they call me Patter that I literally feel like a little pitter patter in my heart. Like it evokes my inner child, and it makes me feel playful, excited about life. And so I started doing it even more. And then at the end of last week, I decided I'm going to fully drop Patrick as a name I introduce myself by and as a name I publish. And, you know, people, you can call me Patrick if you want to. And when you call me Patter, like, you're on the inside knowing that you're evoking my inner child when you refer to me that way. So sometimes I know it's hard for people to change names, but that's what I'm inviting you into. And I think it's a really amazing thing to be able to share. And I'm so thankful. And so as I went through that second to third week, I started to realize that I'm more connected to communication with my tower than I thought I was. And that when I really ask and I be present and I make space for noticing, the changes are profound. So like I've been talking with Nico about my disconnection from my inner child for a long time, and the ground has been really slow to make progress. And then, I put this month inside of this intention, and the progress has been enormous. And so, yeah, that's where we wanted to start the dialogue today, is to offer some context for interacting with the tower, and to set, to kind of get in here and distinguish. Maybe we'll let you distinguish the parts, Nico, about like, it's not all easy, but that
Well,
doesn't mean it's not just what you need.
yeah, exactly. So I get a lot of questions about people. Should I put my tower here? Can I put this next to it? Should I ask it like that? Should I ask it 3 times? Should I ask it out loud? Should I playfulness? It's the key, right? You're making a soul connection, and attributes like playfulness, like contentment. These are soul attributes, right? When you go into playfulness, you are much closer to your soul, right? Like when you were born as a baby, that's probably the closest you were to your divine source, to your soul. And then it kind of gets programmed out. All the no's come, all the limiting beliefs come up, right? We get programmed with these things. What I want to tell you is like, just play with it. You can't really mess it up. We're so afraid that we're going to do something wrong and it's not going to work the way it's supposed to. No, play with it. Because when you're in that playful state, you're matching an important part of the vibration of the cosmic towers, which is a soul vibration. So people ask about this connection all the time. Well, you cannot not connect to it. Like, whether you realize it or not, being a living being, you naturally connect to living beings around you. It's more a matter of whether you're aware of it or not. And that's why being like a child and being playful, it's so important. That's how I interact with my towers, and they all have names and they all have funny sidebars. Well, they might not say that, but I'm playing with the energy field. Right. And I was up in Vegas last week, and they had one of the Dan Winner Terrify machines, and I always wanted to try it. And it was so cool. It works with gases under a high current. And I'd be like talking to the device. I was like, hey, I know you're alive and you're very beautiful. And it would like light up. Right. So I know that that happens with your tower too. It's just maybe not in your visible spectrum right now. So I can put everybody at ease. There's nothing for you to become. There's nothing for you to go study so you can efficiently communicate with your tower. There's only a letting go of everything you've not, that you've taken on during your journey. And that's actually what we are prompted to do as humanity right now, which is letting go of all these stories, right? That keep, it's not like you can be disconnected from source. It's just that your awareness might believe, you might believe that you're not, and because of that, you're not aware of that connection, but it's always there. That's what I'm telling you. So go easy on yourself, be playful with it, have fun with it, all right? And you'll see connection be right there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So with that in mind, we're really excited to announce a masterclass we're going to be doing on interacting with your cosmic tower. And we set the dates today. And it's going to be 3 Wednesdays, spaced 2 weeks apart. So every time is a Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And it's Wednesday, September 13th is going to be the launch. And then 2 weeks later, on Wednesday, September 27th, will be the next one. And then Wednesday, October 11th at 3 p.m. will be the third. So start to get that on your calendar. Invite friends. If you want to teach people about the tower, tell them to come to the class. Who doesn't need lessons on interacting with infinite energy and becoming more playful? There we go. Look at that. We just wrote some brief notes about this, and Jen has just taken it and put the art of playfulness. That's the name of the class, Nico. We're launching the art of playfulness. It's so perfect. Nico's going to be All right. Nico's going to be our lead teacher, and nobody's more playful than Nico. So, sorry, I just had a wave of your dog caricatures come through me real quick there. He's really fun to be around in person. Nico is. So yeah, so we're delighted that Nico's going to lead us in that, and I'm going to be his assistant and brave volunteer to share all the things that are stuck in me that keep me from being playful and keep me from having a great realized relationship with the inner tower, with the cosmic tower, and then you all have the opportunity to do the same. So it's going to be really fun, really fun. Cool. Does anybody want to jump in with any questions or comments? We appreciate you putting questions in the chat, and everybody who's emailed questions in. We've gathered all those. We have them on a spreadsheet now. Our system's getting much better at capturing them and making sure we get answers out to everybody. And so yeah, this is a community discussion. So if anybody wants the mic, just raise your hand at any point. And I saw a question in here that's kind of practical and simple. Who will be taking Harald's place in his company? Did he have people in place to carry on, or is his family trying to arrange that? Want to comment on that, Nico?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm sure it popped in everybody's mind at some point. So Harald had made an agreement with his wife, Antje, that she would continue his mission if he, were to leave the physical body. And, that's what's going on now. I got to let you know, like Harald being a German and electromechanical engineer was very organized. So he had the production spread over 5 different locations because it's carpentry, right? 5 different carpenters that also do other work, and then the water, etc. And all of that was running very smooth already. Plus he had like all the materials to make another 2,000 towers because he wanted to make sure if something were to happen to the supply chain that he could crank out another 2,000 big towers. So no worries there. As far as leading the company, of course, Harald's shoes are really big to fill, but his wife made the promise. Also, his wife's a medium, right? She's a psychic, so Harald can actually guide her from a different plane as far as running the company. And also, I think it goes back to the other theme. The Cosmic Tower clearly was Harald's baby, and Harald brought it into the world. But it's all of us as it goes through adolescence. This is a project by humanity, for humanity. It's not like we're looking at one guy or one company to go do it for us and to build a new grid. It's for all of us. And that's why it's time for us, to all step up and own it. We're birthing a new grid for the earth, for the future. So from that point of view, the responsibility is shifting more to us as individuals and as a community to do a lot of things that Harald did, but production in the company is fine and it continues.
Yeah, that part operationally has actually been stunningly smooth. So we have a lot of inventory in stock, and everything is just going well in terms of communication, in terms of we had a tower that we needed to reset last week, and that went right along, and so everything's just normal on that standpoint. He really did get the company to a certain state of maturity that actually the physical part is not really that important for him anymore. I personally think that's part of why it was time for him to go. Like, I think it was a factor. Like he matured it to a certain level. Cool. Nico, we have I sometimes am a little off on my own in the agenda here. Like, I'm going to go to the chat and pull the questions that are out of there right now, if that's okay with you, or I can go to the spreadsheet. Do you have
Let's do both, so people that mail them in, so we actually get to their questions before the time is over.
That's why I asked you, because sometimes I forget that, guys, and then somebody doesn't get an answer that we promised. Okay, let's see if we can get through the chat and get caught up, and then we'll hop over. And if I stay too long, we'll just hop over. Has anyone with a tower had damage to their property from weather? I'm wondering if it can definitely protect from man-made weather events that may be occurring. I remember an example of someone feeling protected, but I would like to know if there are more examples either way. What do we have?
Yeah, I know Harald told me a story a few times of a lady. I think she was in Austria or somewhere around there in Europe. She'd wake up in the middle of the night. It was like a really big storm heading her way that would be violent, and she has a 220 or a 250 and a 75, and she stood in between them, and it started running a lot of energy, and she was actually able to dissipate the storms, right? So I think it's like working with it consciously makes it more powerful. But yeah, because it is a harmonizing field, right? It will harmonize out what it's not natural and man-made. But then it becomes a question, of course, to how much, if it's artificial harp or whatever, how much energy are they throwing at it? And what do we have in the area as far as harmonization with the cosmic tower? And then you guys might not know it, but I studied Dan Winter's work a lot. And he also talks about tornadoes in a sense are conscious, and how they will take out structures that bleed their aura, that basically cause them pain, like metal barns and those type of structures. And he says that's why a tornado would never take out a sacred site, because it doesn't hurt it. So think of the cosmic tower as a portable sacred site to where basically, yeah, it's the weather is not going to be attracted to it like a tornado because it's hurting it.
Awesome. It looks like Richard might have. Oh, I went the other way. I just muted you by mistake, Richard. You have to unmute again. My mistake. Looks like Richard might have something to add on this topic. Sorry about that, Richard. I'm clicking the ask to unmute button. Hopefully that's popping up on your screen now.
Well, as it would happen, I got my tower on Wednesday, and the Washington metropolitan area had a big storm. It made national news. We had a lot of trees went down. In the area that I live in, they had 1,000 people without electricity. Now, fortunately, I have a generator, but I was concerned. I must say I was concerned, but I wasn't that concerned because I just had I was sitting in the living room with my tower and my 220. I said, well, do your thing. I said, we're all about harmonizing. You're here to harmonize, do what has to be done. If it's my house, it's gonna go, but it's in harmony with you. You decide what's gonna be. So I just felt confident it would handle whatever needed to be done. And in my house, there's a lot of harmony going on right now. With my 3 towers and my quantum block, they all have to harmonize everything. So I just live with all these things taking place. And I'm so fortunate. My house is like the calmest place on earth. And when my friends came to visit me on Sunday, these were the people that were my sponsors when I became a Catholic. We all sat down in the living room and they just sat there and they looked at this and they go, oh my. And I said, so what do you think? They go, well, I have to think. They were taken aback, and not in a bad way, okay? They said, it feels very calming here. I said, exactly. I said, when you walk into my house, it's like you're walking into a chapel. That's how my house feels like a holy place. And when that storm came through, I got a little bit scared because they said, you know, head to the bathroom because of tornado warnings. But man, I want to tell you, not a window shook in my house. I could hear the thunder, not a one window shook in my house. I am so grateful that I have that tower. And I got to tell you, so the amazing thing was, this is Angie. Where's you, Angie? You're disappearing there. There you go, Angie. I knew Angie when I saw Angie, when I took Angie out of her bag, and Patter, thank you very much for making sure that she came in her bag. And as I opened it up, it was like a little, when I saw what I loved, what I absolutely loved, was the little flap that covered the little glass so it wasn't touching the zipper. I said, oh, yes, it protected it. And it was like, as I peeled it back and I could see the dark beads, I could really tell the color because the lighting, it was like it was winking at me, like peekaboo, like a baby, right? And it was like, I said, oh, it's so cute. And then when I touched it, it felt so smooth. I probably caressed it for, I don't know, 20 minutes. And as I'm caressing it and just looking at it and admiring it, all of a sudden I go, okay, Angie, yeah, that's fine. I know my spirit guide his name is Angie. And then when I got, so this was Monday, okay? Monday of last week. Tuesday, I got the 35. And that was a totally different experience. When that came, I opened that box and of course it was heavy. And I only weigh 108 pounds myself. So to lift that up, they left it outside. And when I lifted it up, I go, oh my God, this is so heavy. And when I opened that box, again, it was, I was just struck by the beauty of it, the craftsmanship. It was so smooth. It just felt, just to touch it, it was amazing. And I go, oh, who do I have here? Abraham. Oh my God, you're so strong. Abraham, he had so much power. I go, oh, you're not like Angie at all. You're Abraham. I get that. Yeah, so Abraham has got some stuff to him, okay? And I need that because I need to have someone strong I can lean into. I go, Abraham, we're gonna do fine. We're gonna do really well. I don't have a name for the tower, but Angie and Abraham, I know quite well. And I love them. I love them all. So what can I tell you? I love my towers.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for jumping in, Richard. We really appreciate you sharing. And, hope as more storms come and go and you continue to be safe, your confidence will get even higher. And any feelings other than just total clarity and safety will just dissipate. So thank you for sharing. Nico, next one for you. So I'm to communicate with the cosmic tower acting like it's a living being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And what's the question?
The question is, do I communicate with it like it's a living being?
Yeah, you do. It's like, how do I do that? And I quote Harald, when you married, your husband or your wife, did you get a manual on how to communicate? No, you know how to connect with other human beings. So yeah, absolutely. Treat it as a human being, and that's important, right? Humanity, we have to get out of this mindset of like, oh, only the humans are conscious and have a soul and everything else is just the core. No, you're part of all of nature, you're part of life, right? So absolutely honor it, respect it, and communicate with it as a human, as a being.
Right on. Next question is, how can we get these delivered to Mexico as they get turned away at customs? Is there a way to drive them over? Judy, if you could email support@thewellnessenterprise.com and make sure we have your contact information, we'll handle that on a case-by-case basis. The exciting news is that the Wellness Enterprise thinks it's so important to have 220 towers in Canada, and we've gotten enough experience with the logistics there that for a time period, for a limited time on a case-by-case basis, we're currently subsidizing any purchases of 220s in Canada, meaning that we're going to take on all the logistics ourselves and the costs of those logistics. And so if you're in Canada and interested in a 220, we feel really confident that we can do that. And we want to get some 220s into Canada. So if you're a potential for that or know somebody who is, please get in touch with us. And as far as Mexico goes, it's dicier. The customs situation and the situation with bribes and the violence, and it's complicated. So that one's really case by case, and we'll just talk to you about it and do the best we can together. We have a strong will on this side of the border to get things there. And if we have people on the other side who have a strong will to get things in, we'll figure it out. But there are a lot of issues with Mexico. Susie asked, so does his wife, so this is Ancha, have a part in bringing in the souls to each of the towers?
No, that's a different person. That as always, done that and connected the souls to it.
Great. And Nico, why do you travel with 235s? Will traveling with 135 be enough? Also, how did you protect the 35s? What did you wrap them in? So like physical protection, but maybe energetic protection too.
Yeah, why do I travel with, usually I travel with 135, but if I have two here, I'll take two and then I can give it to somebody to play with where I'm at. That's the only reason, just 135. I was just in Vegas and that's where, you know, I had two, but one was a big relief already. And I gave one to a friend of mine who's very sensitive and an energy healer and a shaman. And we have our trainings in Vegas. And he was like, wow, I never slept this good in Vegas. I noticed it from like the first night. So yeah, if I have one, I'll take it with me to allow people in class that I am to have an experience of a cosmic tower, because it's something that needs to be experienced. You know, you don't really what it's like until you experience it. So how do I wrap mine? Like I have like a dolphin, like a Turkish towel that I wrap around my 35. And then I have a backpack that I carried in, so it's padded. And then what I do is I have a hard shell suitcase, and then I have my towels and stuff on one end, put so the tower is in the middle, and then clothes on top of it. So it's fully suspended in all my clothes and all my stuff, and in a backpack with then wrapped in a Turkish towel. And it's been to Egypt, been to Belgium, it's been to Mexico, it's been all over the US, and that has worked great.
I'm starting to have some experience with that now too. I've wrapped Francine in a sweatshirt and put her in the center of a hard shell suitcase and checked it in and been fine. And in a backpack, I tend to just have some form of clothing or a towel or whatever and just put it in my backpack and take it. Really easy. It's traveled super well. Okay, Nico, this is an interesting one. Harald's son says that the cosmic towers do not have water in them, but rather aborted fetus amniotic fluid. Can you confirm or deny that?
I don't know anything about that. There's always stories out there. I know for a while, Harald and his son, you know, they went their own way, right? And Harald said, because his son kind of got into his ego, I wasn't there in person to witness that, so I don't know where this comes from. The only thing I can tell you is my experience with the tower and the amazing effects on nature around me and how the plants just grow beautifully, how animal life is thriving, how calm people are, how harmonizing the field is, my own guidance. So to me, that's not something that could be achieved with such a dark energy. That's why, for my experience, I think that's a rumor, or who knows where that came from. But it brings up something important too, which is for every good thing in the world, you're gonna have people that say it's the devil, the other way around. Right, that's just part of human nature, and you always have that, because of course disinformation is rampant on the internet, and one of the ways, you know, they would want to slow down a project like that is by spreading rumors like that. But my advice is always learn to become your own authority in your reality. You learn to feel, you learn to discern what the energies are. You should not go to somebody with a white coat or with certain papers on the wall to know what is right for you. I think we're all being called. We have the guidance within. We have our own source connection within. Use your own compass. That would be my advice around that.
Awesome. Maybe you can prepare for a screen share here if you're going to show the map.
Sure.
How many 220s are standing in North America? Are there any areas in the US that still need a large tower?
Yeah, so let me share a map real quick. Now, so the way I do this is I talked this with Harald. I have circles on there where the towers are approximate, right? And then I create these polygons to not give the exact locations away. That's something Harald wanted us to do. So here you can, see the general area. So if we start the East Coast, right? We're starting really the East Coast is ramping up. We had like what, 2 in Vermont, 2 in Connecticut, and now Maryland with Richard, and then another one in what, Long Island, Pat? I think there's like 4.
Massachusetts. Yeah, they've
Massachusetts.
been popping up over there really quickly.
Yeah, so that's good because that's an area Harald was always particularly focused on. New York, really important. So beautiful. We're getting traction there. So nice that Richard came online. So Washington's getting cleared out. And then we basically go all the way down to Key West, to Florida. So the whole East Coast there has presence. We have a gap, New Orleans, Mississippi area there that would beautifully fill it in. Then we go into Missouri, all of Texas is pretty much covered. And then Arizona, LA, Las Vegas, that area also multiple big towers, 5 to 6 or so in that area. I was counting when I was in Vegas. I think I had coverage of like 4 or 5 big towers while I was there. And then all the way up the West Coast into British Columbia. And so you see the gaps are pretty obvious. So we're looking at Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, all those places.
And in
to get
terms of
coverage.
in terms of like what would fill in that left side, like if we had 1 in Colorado, 1 in the Salt Lake City area, and 1 in the Boise or Idaho Falls area, that would really smooth out that whole western side of the United States. So just 3 more there, and then 1 more down in New Orleans or Jackson, Mississippi, or the bottom of Alabama, and that would be an amazing fill in there too. So we're I think the map looks great. It's really exciting.
Yeah, so those are 22 big towers that are standing up.
Great. So there's 22 standing. Cool. Oh, thanks for stopping the screen share. Nico, I'm going to jump over to the spreadsheet because I know we have a bunch there. And I know some of these questions came in from people in the last few days by email versus ones that were older. So even though we had planned to start on some that we highlighted in green, I think those are the older ones compared to the newer ones. Do you know where the first new one is?
I do.
Sweet.
Go to line, let's see, 84.
84.
84 and down are new ones, Patrick.
Okay, cool. Nico, I'm gonna pop there. You good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with any question.
That's cool. I just want to make sure we meet all the promises of everybody that we said we'd address their questions on this call. And how is the plasma in the cosmic tower created without heat exceeding 10,000 degrees?
Yeah, well, that still comes from the old thinking that the only type of plasma you can have is with heat, right? When you say plasma, people think plasma torches, right? Now, your body is also a plasma. It's a cold plasma. When did your body go to 10,000 degrees of heat in your creation process? Right? There's also cold plasma. There's other ways to create plasma than heat. And Gerald Pollack showed this basically in his book, The Fourth Phase of Water, too, right? You can create plasma by adding radiant energy. You can create it, with temperature and with pressure, but you have to think about a cold plasma, not the heat torch like plasma. And your body is basically a cold plasma, right? It's water in a fourth phase in a plasma state. And you didn't go through 10,000 degrees. I hope not. So yeah, there's other ways of creating plasmas. Right?
Awesome. How do the towers work within the range of your own towers versus someone else's tower?
So basically they all have similar fields, and what I would say is like they have slightly different characters, for lack of a better term. in that if you have a 35 or a 75, yeah, it will do beneficial things like with the water beyond the confines of your house, right? And support nature. But as far as like personal connection, right? That's more personal to you, helping you with your personal connection. And after a while, you might be able to discern the differences. Like my 35, it's different than my 75. They're both beneficial, but the connection is different.
Hey, is there any kind of meter or sensitivity test that can be utilized to evaluate a cosmic tower?
Well, yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of measuring done, like with things like BioL, right? Or if you do GDV, if you look at a person's aura, there's been, you know, pictures taken of water crystals in Holland with water, tap water in Holland, without the cosmic tower, and then exposing it to a cosmic tower for so many minutes, taking the picture again, seeing the difference in crystalline structure. Then there's famous dowsers in Europe that have also released their own reports that use dowsing and biotensor to determine the Bovis value, not only of water, but also of areas, of areas of nature, certain urban areas. So there's been a lot of testing done. There's been more indirect testing, right, with the negative ions in a space and before and then after having a cosmic tower in it for 2 hours. And we have those. I have the cosmictower.com website and also on the Wellness Enterprise, you know, that shows the results of that. But again, do your own testing, right? Whether it's dowsing, whether it is whatever, that you do your testing to know whether these vitamins or whatever are good for you, right? Do your own. If you don't know, learn how to test, learn to be your own authority, learn to discern for yourself what it is doing for you.
Okay, do the towers emit the exact same fields? So the different sizes are the slightly different. For instance, if you were in a room where there was a CT35 and a CT75, would it be any different compared to only having one of the two of them in the room?
So the CT75 field is 6 times stronger than the 35, right? So you can feel it. I know people that are like not that sensitive, and with a 35, they were not able to feel it directly so strongly, but then with a 75, they're like, oh yeah, I definitely feel something. So yeah, the fields are very similar. I just feel like the 75 and the 220 for sure is just like a lot more energy, right? But and then also I find that like the smaller towers, I don't know how to describe it, they're just like more personable. That to me they're like more playful than the bigger ones. Yeah, you can work with them, have that connection, but they're not, you know, they're connected to the higher dimensions, the bigger towers, so they're, you know, further away from like that personal separate experience that we are having here now.
Hey, if I'm not in a stable, permanent place, I move around a lot. Is there anything I need to know to recalibrate myself for the tower for us to have holiness in each space that I go to? Do I need to
No.
call the tower anything?
Yeah, what just helps is anywhere you go with your tower, your communication, your intention, and you working with it will always amplify. The toroidal field will be there. But what I do, for example, if I go to a hotel room and I put it down, I set my intention for my stay there, right? Clear any stagnant energies, clear what's not beneficial, right? So I use it to clear the space, and then I ask it to set up, you know, a protective, pure, energetic space for our stay there.
Okay, so let's see if I got this one right. When I think of talking with my tower, I find it difficult to demand. I feel I am not giving back to my tower.
Mm.
It's only asking. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, the magic word, you said please. But no, actually, the cosmic towers are happy, right, to bring in that energy. And but what I do feel like, for example, and that's just me personal, I took my tower into all the temples. I take it everywhere. My 35, if it's my baby. And for me, I feel it gets joy out of that. Like it loves it. Like my girlfriend Tara always says she loves being by the beach, the tower, because the moment we take her by the beach, she's just like, right. So I feel having that experience and having that interaction, I think they really appreciate. So I think as long as you're doing, you're communicating with it and you're acknowledging it and you're thanking it, absolutely, they're here to serve.
Nice. I have the new Mini, and for some reason feel it likes being in the same room as the CT35. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I always feel like they play together. Right? Sometimes I have a few of them sitting here, and I like to put them in certain geometries and go sit in the middle of it and sees what happens. Yeah, they definitely like being around each other. And then for sure with the 222, it's a huge protection for all the smaller ones. So yeah.
Hey, jumping around a little bit here, Jen, if you're trying to follow me. I'm going to jump up to line 27 and I'm going to work up from there. So Nico, the topic comes up about the inner workings of the tower and crystals and like how those relate. Do we put our crystals next to our towers? Don't we put them? Some things have been said by some people, some things by other people. Like, let's dive into this topic. What do you think?
Well, Harald talked about that too, right? And I think that's where some of the confusion may come from, which we're saying like, hey, the crystals can boost the range. And then Harald said, don't put any crystals around it. So this comes down again to test it and play for yourself, right? Learn to feel, learn to do your own measurements and see what works best for you. So I know early on, Harald told me that there were particular people that had actually worked with amethyst around the tower, and it boosted the effectiveness. But I do not know, those crystals, their history and the caliber of that people as far as like working with crystals. So I would say if you really want to be on the safe side and you're really doubtful still, just give the cosmic tower its space. If you want to play with it, put some crystals around it, see what you feel, douse it, use your pendulum, see what it does with the range. Ask the cosmic tower, it's like, hey, I'm playing here, give me some signs about how this is working. If for any reason this crystal should not be there, let me know. And it has its way of letting you know. Right, so play with it. Don't be so worried about like I'm gonna screw something up.
Yeah, this is an important topic. So sometimes just hearing the same words from a different voice is helpful. So just, chime in to say that there's a lot of different answers to this question. And the most important thing is you empowering you to be the authority on answering the question. And so the way you get to empower you is that you experiment. And if we change experiment from the idea of a lab coat and right and wrong, and we change it to playfulness, and we just lean into it and we ask and we see how it shows up, then we start to trust ourselves and we start to trust the underlying aspects of life that have always been there supporting us, that we got all this other stuff layered on top of. And really what we want to do is just go back to our connection with nature and our empowerment of ourselves, so we feel safe and free and playful in this world. So try your crystals out and tell us what you experience. Okay, can you stack two 35s? Would it be twice as strong, 3 times as strong, the same as the 75? What happens?
Yeah, so I get that question a lot. Can I get two 35s and then have the same power as a 75? It does not work that way. So what determines the strength of the field on the physical level is how much water the tower contains, and then how far the vessels are spread apart. So for example, Harald also has a 250, which has exactly the same amount of water as a 220, but the vessels are a foot further apart, which makes it like 25% more powerful. So in that sense, 235s is not going to give you like a 75 because it's almost as tall. Now, I kind of look at two different things. So when we talk about the range of the cosmic towers, the cosmic tower creates scalar waves, and I think the name scalar wave, the wave is kind of bad choice of words, but I can get into that some other time. But basically, anywhere within that range, the cosmic tower can send energy with little to no loss. Right? This was the Nikola Tesla wireless transfer of energy patent of 1900 or something. But every tower also has a limited amount of energy available to it, right? It can continuously bring new energy in, but at any given time, it can only have so much energy. So then it's determined by how much distortion does it have to deal with in the field. If you live in a ranch in Montana with not a 5G tower around, or you live downtown New York, there's going to be a lot of different level of interference. So look as a scalar wave not being like this, but basically filling up the space with energy, right? So even though like a CT 220 has a range of like 800 kilometers, like 500 miles diameter, its actual stable field where it continuously holds the higher energy is much smaller than that. So that's why we need multiple towers, you know, for bigger cities to deal with that. So think about those two. And then the bigger tower, yeah, it's always going to be more powerful than the smaller ones. So.
Awesome. Nico, I admittedly took my focus elsewhere while you were answering that question, and it looks like you touched some of the topics that are coming up in the next question. So if I'm redundant in the asking, just help me out here. We'll work together. So does the tower emit scalar waves in its toroidal field, and does it produce a 0-point field?
Yeah, produce a 0-point field. So everything comes from like the 0 point, right? So when the toroidal field is created, yeah, there is an axis. There is an axis to the 0 point that's being created. So I think that's what the person means with does it create a 0-point field, which by the way, you also have within your own body, right? In the center of your head, in your heart, in your lower dantian. I mean, you have a stargate in the center of your head, whether you realize it or not, that you can travel through. So yeah, the cosmic tower also in the center has that access point, you know, to the 0 point. That's the center of the toroidal field, right? That's the singularity or what they would call it. And yes, it does create scalar waves. So a lot of people get confused about scalar waves and transversal waves. So real simple explained, if I take a rope and I go like this, that transversal wave, yeah, that's a transversal wave. So right, what can we consider a scalar wave? Take a nail, hit it with a hammer, boom. That energy transfer is infinite. I mean, it's infinitely fast, right? It's like a pressure wave through the medium. So that is a scalar wave, and it's unfortunate that they call it a wave, because a scalar wave doesn't travel like that. It's basically, it travels longitudinally. So yes, it does create a scalar wave, but one of the best explanations I found, or descriptions to wrap our head around it. It's like it more fills up the space with energy.
Great. We have the question again about the generalized map of the big towers, and we did that, but there's another aspect here that I think we can go a little deeper into, which is how many cosmic towers are currently deployed and what is roughly the coverage? So we start by answering about Europe, right? Because that's where it all
Europe's like over 800 big ones. Also, 250s and a bunch of 4-meter ones, actually. Then in the US, we have 22 different, big towers in different locations. Plus, of course, the ones we have in the warehouse, those are active too, right? So we have we have 40 in the US, 22 spread out over different locations.
Does the 0-point field extend beyond the center of the tower, or is it only within the tower?
Well, the 0 point is in the center of the toroidal field, right? And then the toroidal field extends out, right? But 0 point is just this point, like where if you go to counterclockwise spin and it goes to this one point and it comes back the other side, right? Clockwise, that point there is what we would refer to the 0 point, which is then also reflected in every galaxy, right? It's reflected then in the atom level, where we think the little marble is. Maybe there's not a little marble there, right? Maybe it's just a mini black hole with a white hole on the other side.
Right on. Okay, so I'm a little back and forth here, Jen. If you're trying to follow me, I'm taking a second in a row from the chat, and I'm going back to the spreadsheet and sticking to my knitting. But this is an interesting question. So, are you willing to accept the liability of negative effects that occur if they do from the cosmic towers?
Negative effects in what sense?
Well, I would. I didn't come up with the question, but there's obviously an assumption there that that the cosmic tower can create a negative effect. So why don't we start with looking at that part of the question? Like, can the cosmic tower create a negative effect?
Yeah, well, it creates a natural harmonic field, like in nature. And then I'm just curious, what the negative effect would be. Yeah, sometimes things can show up in your environment that people might perceive as negative, things that you need to clear.
A lot of termites move into your home. That's a negative effect. Oh, nature loves it. Now all these termites came into my house. There's a good example, right? It's good for the termites. It ain't good for me, but maybe it's good for nature. I don't know. I think you can say, now I already told my tower, I said, look, I don't have a thing for insects. They deserve to be here as much as I do, but I'm encouraging you to do as much as you can to help them stay outside. I know you got to serve every living thing. I'm not going to put any pressure on you, but do what you got to do, but encourage them to stay outside. That's what I left it at that. What do you think? Does that seem reasonable to ask your tower to do? Encourage the bugs to stay out? I think so.
Yeah, you can. Zane has experience with that.
We'll find out. I don't want to kill them.
Okay. So, Nico, here's
if we can get clarification on the negative effects, so we can be happy, to answer that.
Okay, cool. So Harald says the cosmic tower provides the frequencies of all kinds of essential oils and all kinds of light, etc. Do you have to interact with it to ask for specific healing effects or call forth certain energies? Or is everything constantly available and applied to you as needed by your body, mind, and spirit?
Yeah, so it's more like everything is available, but you working consciously, with your own conscious, with an other consciousness is always more powerful, right? But that doesn't, it's not like, oh, give me sulfur 10K homeopathic, you don't have to go to like that detail, but you can hold the image of, you being healthy, right? And sharing that with the cosmic tower. See, I never with healing, like to focus on addressing something. Like, for example, you have a bad knee. I don't like to focus on healing the knee, because then you got to keep the bad knee around, because you want to have the experience for healing. What I hold is the image of doing something that you can't do with your knee. So playing tennis or skiing, and that inherently, means that your knee is well again. So same for nature, right? Trees are very healing. There's all kinds of healing attributes within nature. Doesn't mean that if you're walking, that your health's not being charged up when you're walking in a forest, right? Yeah, of course you get healthier. You feel better afterwards. Now, if you specifically work with a particular tree consciously to get its medicine, and you get it to that level, of course it's more powerful. Same with the cosmic tower, right? It's going to create that harmonious environment, but always work your intention and combine your own consciousness with the consciousness of the tower.
Okay, great. Does the tower help with deep emotional pain and mental illness and trauma?
Yes, from my experience, it does. Now, know that oftentimes is a journey, right? These are things that, I do this for a living. I know a lot of people's trauma starts somewhere between, when they're still in the womb and 5 years old, right? So a lot of things that happen is things are being brought up that show you that you need to address certain patterns. I actually have one family in Belgium where I coached the son for a long time. He was suicidal, and then turned him around and taught him all the how to clear his emotions. And then I basically taught him hey, if you have a hard time, go to the tower downstairs, and do the process and work with it. And it works really well for him. So he does that, and he feels supported even when I'm not physically around there somewhere. It's the middle of the night and he doesn't have support. So, yeah.
Great. Sometimes I feel I do not know how to ask my CT35 tower to help me. Do I need to be right next to it when I'm communicating?
In the beginning, if it makes you feel better, gives you more confidence, yes, sit in front of it. Right? Get out of your head, drop in your heart, feel, and then speak it out loud, what you want. And then you'll find over time that the connection's always there, whether you're in the physical presence or not. It's like a mother and her child, right? Yeah, in the beginning, it helps good to have a connection face to face and talk. But after a while, your child can be on the other side of the world and something can be going on, and you're going to know it. You're going to feel it, because we're always connected. I would say it's the same for cosmic power.
Yeah, and I can weigh in on that a little bit, because my sensitivity has been developing. It's been about a year since I first met Leva. That's Nico's CT35, and I've had a hard time feeling her at all when I first met her, but I could notice effects in my life, and then when I first had the opportunity to have a tower of my own, I wanted a 75 because I wanted more, and so I got a more tower, and I felt that, and I was able to feel it physically more, and I would always want to be looking at it when I was communicating with it. Fast forward a year, I've been around 220s a lot, and 75s and 35s, and I eventually felt a connection with a specific 35. I was carrying a number of them, and I was like, oh, this one's mine. And I was, all the people who purchased their tower, and they felt like, while it was on the ship and on its way to the US, they were communicating with it already. I was like, I had a little bit of curiosity, why can't I do that? Where is that? And then I had this moment of that connection. And, I know the 35 that's with me is the 35 that's supposed to be with me. And I've spent this month like really close to her, like, we've been in a small space and really focused on her. And, this morning I've had a couple of interactions that led my awareness to that there was some anxiety passing through and around me. And so I came outside and stood on the earth and looked toward the sun and went to clear it. And I wasn't as effective as I wanted to be. And so I walked around a little bit more and then I was like, oh yeah. And I went back on the dirt and I asked Francine for support. And as soon as I did that, my internal dialogue shifted and I shifted into appreciation. And my language changed and I had appreciation for Francine and for the earth and for the sun. And I, started speaking with language of honoring them. And then in doing that, I was clear, oh, like that anxiety, like it can't coexist in this space that I've just shifted into. So, it's an ongoing process for us where maybe being with it in person is really important to you up front, and maybe it will be less so later on. I know from driving around the country with Nico in different parts of the country, he will feel different towers that are a couple hundred miles away as we come into range with them. And, he might ask me a question as we're driving and I'll like pull up a map and I was like, yeah, we just got into range of this one. It's pretty funny to have those experiences. Cool. If I have my cell phone and mini in my purse, how would they impact each other? Is there a recommendation around how to carry both?
Yeah, so the important thing with the mini is, a cosmic tower is more powerful when it's sitting up. So we'll always, do my best with the mini to have it sit up if you have a purse or a backpack, etc. And if you could help it, yeah, I wouldn't put my cell phone like right next to it. Or as soon as you get to your location, just have the cell phone not just sitting right on the tower, right? To recommend separating the two.
Okay. Can you speak about the recent galactic light upgrade for the Cosmic Tower network?
Oh, that's from last year. Yeah, that happened last year in the late summer, and Harald was basically talking about how the toroidal field, the connection before was to our solar system, to the sun, and how that had been expanded to be in resonance with the galactic frequencies. So we get those higher overtone frequencies are now also in the Cosmic Tower network, but that's already been for like 9 months or so, I would say, half year to 9 months. Yeah.
Okay, knowing fruits and vegetables are re-energized, as mentioned, but wondering what, if any, effect might there be on grass-fed organic meats, eggs, or raw milk? So,
yeah, so we have to look at how the Cosmic Tower energizes, which is through the water structures, right? Through cutting up the water structures and restructuring the water so into hexagonal shape. So it all depends of how much like pure water is in it, right? If you have, I don't know, a pizza that's all like dehydrated and there's no water in there, there's a limited amount of things that the Cosmic Tower can do, but things that are high in water content, yeah, it can put more life force back in. So yeah, look at water content and then how pure the water is. Ideally, drink a lot of pure water with the Cosmic Tower, because when it structures that, you can really bring in a lot of life force.
I think this question came from a little while back, and I don't know if you still hold the context for it, but the question is, why is water being pumped from the earth not ideal for our health?
Oh, okay. Well, that's something Harald would talk about when he spoke about the levitation of water. And what Harald basically talked about was that if you pump water from deep into the earth, it hasn't gone through its full maturation cycle yet. So it's like picking a green apple from the tree. he said. And what he means by that is that the way water circulates on the planet, as water travels through underground and picks up the different minerals, those are actually all frequencies within the rainbow spectrum. And Harald would talk about how water with the full rainbow spectrum of light in it will levitate to the surface, like you have at a healing well or an artisanal well. That's when the water is mature and has the full rainbow spectrum of light within it. So when you go pump it out of there, you know, it hasn't gone through its whole process yet where it naturally is fully mature, right for harvesting.
All right. I noticed that I feel more calmness even in situations that would stress me out. I guess this is since Cosmic Tower. I have an indoor plant I didn't pay much attention to for a long time. I started taking care of it before I got my tower without success. Since I got my tower, it's looking much better and it's growing new leaves. Okay, we got some comments in here, not just questions. So thank you for sharing. Does any size tower revitalize and restructure food and water?
Yes. It's a Harald would talk about how take the mini with you and you can still have the structure of the water. Just know that the bigger towers obviously are more powerful, right? So the same job would take less time.
Hey, I ordered both a 75 and a mini. If I take the mini to a restaurant, how might it impact the water and food I order?
Yeah, so if the water is mostly clean, meaning there is not a lot of solvents in it and whatever, so if there are plenty of pure water structures to work with, you know, the mini will help to restructure the water.
Okay, and if you live with people, does the Cosmic Tower help everyone in the house or just the owner of the Cosmic Tower?
It helps everyone. Now, the more personal a relationship you create with it, the more, you know, aligned the help is with what you need. Now, the only exceptions are if somebody is there and they really don't want anything to do with the tower, like that's cool too. And you can put a bubble around it and let those people, you know, have their own experience. Remember, free will is never stepped on. It's always in alignment with our free will.
Nice. We're going to be wrapping up within 15 minutes. If anybody has anything live that they want to jump in with, it's a great time to raise your hand and get into the conversation. Karen, we'd love to hear from you. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. What Nico said about the underground water. I live in Maine, and Maine has like the most Poland spring waters here, right? They use a lot of underground water. We have a well and we pump up the water. So we do use the water restructuring water thing, but that's still just upgrading the immature water then, right? We're not really getting all the, so is there anything else we can do? Like put it in bottles and put it in sunlight or?
Well, the Cosmic Tower has those frequencies in it, right? And will infuse your water in it. So any clean water sounds like you have, because that water will be pure typically coming from a well. So the Cosmic Tower will address that. So once it comes out of your faucets or it will infuse it.
The water. Oh, I'm sorry.
As long as it's in the field of your tower, it will be restructured. So I pay attention to it, like the water coming here from your faucet or from your shower head, the hardness, and then you have the Cosmic Tower in your home, you can feel the difference in the water. And that's something we hear from a lot of people too.
Yeah, I've never heard that. So where can I read more about this philosophy or this thing about underground water?
That's a good question. I will look that up for you.
I think Victor Schauberger would be a good place to start.
Yeah, we also had this guy in Holland, that was writing a book that also talks about this, how structure is one part of it, and then the full rainbow spectrum of light in it. I know they have done some studies there. So. And
what was the last name, Victor? What?
Schauberger. Schauberger. And I think that the book that most people point to as the best work on Schauberger's work was written by Callum, Callum, Coates, Coats.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for that insight. That was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And just as we're wrapping up with you, there's another book that I read. It's been a while, but I think if you search for water and rainbow light, you'll probably encounter the right kind of answers to what you seem more interested in. So I would look down that road.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for all your questions and your participation. Hey, Susan, welcome. Great to see you, and please jump in.
Hi. Okay, so I have a question about the water I'm drinking. I have a whole house water structure thing, natural action, the white thing. And so the tap water comes in through there. And then I've been using this turquoise thing. I forget.
The Aqua Energizer. Yep.
Exactly. And well, okay, so first I put it in the pitcher, the best water pitcher ever. Then I run it through this. And the question is, well, first of all, is it necessary to run it through this since I have the Cosmic Tower 35? And is that water pure enough, having gone through the things it goes through, to benefit from the Cosmic Tower?
Sure, I can speak to that. Each of the technologies that we're talking about on this call, whether it's the Cosmic Tower, the Aqua Energizer, even the natural action devices, they're all creating harmony in water. That's the point. That's why we're structuring water together. That's how this community grew together. And there's no amount of creating harmony in water that's too much. So you can just keep going with it. And there's like, how do you feel when you're doing it? So for me, I've been using a water pitcher this past month and holding the Aqua Energizer handheld device between the faucet and the pitcher and filling it up that way feels great. I'm like really excited about it. I'm really happy that I have that and I have access to that technology. It actually evokes a state of appreciation in me. So there are other times that people, Clayton Nolte in particular, with the natural action devices, he used to tell people it's really important to structure water more times through the portable. And he would recommend doing it in instances of 3. So he'd say like structure it 9 times. And I tried that and I was like, no way, Jose, like that is not fun for me at all. Like I did one time when I was really bored, structure my water all day long, just keep pouring it through to see what the experience was. And for me, trading off the energetic investment that I had to make to structure over and over, I didn't enjoy it. So there's a little bit of like guidance that comes through. What do I like doing? What do you like doing? And so do you need to use the Aqua Energizer? No, I don't think you need to use it. Do I find it really beneficial to use it? Yeah, I think it makes water taste sweeter and feel softer. So I really enjoy those benefits. If you feel them too, then you would keep using it. You take the time to have it around and use it. As far as purity goes, that's a different conversation. And I've just addressed like structure first. In the purity conversation, you're using the best water pitcher ever. I named the best water pitcher ever. I went through a lot of water pitchers to find that. It's the best water pitcher ever. It's phenomenal. It's removing things that water pitchers don't. So is it meeting the claim of purity? Absolutely, as strongly as a water pitcher can. So I would feel super confident if I was you passing my water through there that if one of your criteria about safety and feeling great about water is purity, you've met that need just with the pitcher by itself. But then you've gone to the next level with the structuring where you've gotten at the energetic residue of that. So you've hit a home run. Like, my hope would be that your water feels safe and that you feel confident about it. Like, I'm sorry, I said safe, I meant soft. It feels soft and that you feel confident about it. And that confidence comes from a feeling of safety. Does that help?
Yeah. What I noticed too, I haven't had to, I've had the water pitcher for, I think, more than a year. I'm not sure. And I never need to change. I mean, because it never stops working, right? So I guess.
Yeah, it's got some beautiful mechanisms built in. So the first is that if it gets really clogged with toxins, the water will stop flowing through it. So if the water stops flowing through it, you replace the filter.
Yeah.
But
okay.
then the other mechanism that's really simple is your taste. And so if you pour the water and it tastes good for a year, and then at some point it crosses the threshold and it stops tasting good, that's when you've gone to the level of tiredness with your filter that it needs to be replaced. And, you know, it can, one of the things that I love about this pitcher is that most companies sell their pitcher filter replacements based on a concept of time.
Yeah.
And that's about profit. Their motivations are different than the motivations of the wellness enterprise. Ours is that you feel confident and safe about your water. And so if your filter is still working after a year or 2 or 3, please keep using it. That's the whole point, is to get as much longevity from these things as possible.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Yeah.
You bet. Thanks for
So-
jumping in, Susan.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to jump into the conversation? Okay, we just used up most of those 15 minutes, and so I don't want to start a big topic. Room for anybody to jump in with a small question or a kind of a limited idea. Nico, you've mentioned that the cosmic tower doesn't like being boxed in or closed in. Does that mean that it stops working or has less strength, or that it emits a field that would be changed under these conditions? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so I mean, scalar waves travel through matter, right? And now I'm talking more about the cosmic tower being a living being. Don't put it at the bottom of your closet under a pile of shoes. Treat it that way and expect that it's going to feel its happiest, right? So I was more talking about that, but obviously, if something has a really negative energy, like you don't sit on top of your Wi-Fi router that also has 5G on it, right? So give it a little bit of room, but then also give it a space where, yeah, where you can interact with it, where you feel honored to have it in your space, where you can talk with it, because the better the communication, really the better the results with it.
Awesome. Nico, do you have any closing words for us?
I have a question.
Okay,
Margaret.
Margaret, go right ahead.
You mentioned in your email you were making plans to help with crowdsourcing.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking us back to that. It passed through, and managing all the chat and the spreadsheet and whatnot, it just passed through and went right on by. So we've had a single really generous donor in the Massachusetts area donate a 220 tower, which is just amazing. And you know, he wanted it in the area and he didn't want to house it, and so he paid for it, which is extraordinary. And then we found an extraordinary home for it. We just got a text the other day of art night in front of the cosmic tower, and you know, all these art supplies have been brought out, and people who come and visit the home are now invited to draw and contribute their artwork. So it's really fun to see this kind of community collaboration. We have a second donor in the Newport, Rhode Island area who has pledged $10,000 toward a 220. So it's enough money that we're substantially on our way there, but we're not there yet. And so if we end up receiving additional gifts right now that are unattached to location, then we will combine them with that $10,000 gift and use that to place that tower there. The next plan, like we've been, you know, so thankful with the development of these initial donors who've kind of showed us the way with the generosity of the money, but there's also the generosity of the community to hold it, right? Because when a tower gets donated, it's owned by the project, and that means it stays in the area. So if somebody moves who's being a guardian, right, we've set out a series of principles, the guardianship principles. And when somebody holds a tower, you know, it's theirs to steward, but not to own. It's the community's to own. And so the next layer is something that we're working on, and it has to do with some crowdsourcing that's been done in Europe. And it also has to do with creating a situation where donations are requested on behalf of a service that's going to be provided to soften the impact of 5G towers. And so we're developing that right now. The conversations are ongoing, and what we want people to know, like the reason we put it in this email, is we wanted to let you guys know that this has started. Like the dialogue and the actual implementation of donations is happening, and the grand vision is to have a lot of 220 towers and placed through donations, and to have guardians across the country. And so, you know, this really does develop as a network for humanity, by humanity, and that's what we're working on. So that's the place that we're at right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking. We love that topic.
If you
Yeah.
have some talking points or ideas that you've already put together, I'm thinking of a couple of places around here that might house a cosmic tower in a public place that might be good for crowdsourcing.
I'd love to hear those thoughts. If you can make sure that Jen has your email, either send it through the chat or just email support@thewellnessenterprise.com, and we'll share with you what we have. It's interesting, like the care that it takes to not only find donors that are willing to contribute without a lot of strings and attachment, but they want to support this network growing, but also then to receive the gifts and have them held well so that they're of the highest service. There's a lot of sensitivity to that. So having more people jump in with us and give us more ideas about how and where to do that. Both sides of the equation are really important, and I'm really happy you're bringing that up. Thank you, Margaret.
I'm thinking of the botanical garden and another garden that we have around here that have public facilities.
That sounds great. Yeah, the natural aspects of that will be a wonderful setting, and the leadership of the organization will be essential. So it's the consciousness of the people who make that decision about whether to accept it and then how to integrate it and speak about it that is really paramount in making that kind of decision. But the natural setting sounds great.
Right, that's where we have to language the proposal or the introduction to it.
Right on. Well, we would love to help with that. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thank you so much. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here today. It's always such a pleasure to come together with you. It's really an amazing thing to meet open-hearted human beings who want to contribute to a different world. So thank you. Thank you, Nico, for all your expertise. And I just asked you all, yeah, you bet, buddy. I just asked everybody to unmute, and you're welcome to let your voice be heard and say goodbye. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nico, for your answers to my question.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for showing up and being a part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.